So liberation from the prison of self, when self becomes a prison, is not achieved by getting to a state of higher consciousness. There is no higher or lower here. There is no state of consciousness that changes. Liberation, freedom, self-realization, realization of the true self is an unveiling, an undoing of the veils of perception. That's all we have really, is perception. It doesn't matter whether you have deafness or blindness. We are still constantly perceiving, sensing. That's all we have. Those senses, how we perceive, is prone to interpretation. We interpret what we perceive, what we sense. That's valuable because that gives us information to navigate the functioning of the organism. If there's danger or pleasure or pain or poison, but that when that becomes non-functional, but a psychological roller coaster that has its own momentum and is constantly interpreting experience, perception, this becomes a layering that then forms the self-identity, the me identity. Yeah? Interpretation swings from being a victim, being a poor me, this shouldn't be happening to me, this shouldn't have happened, there's something wrong with me, or life doesn't love me, or life is punishing me, or this is a curse, or this is a failure, or I'm a failure, or I'm not worthy enough, I'm not loved enough, I'm not lovable enough, or some variation. It swings from that to the other extreme. I'm so special, I'm so blessed, I'm so lucky, I'm so clever, I'm so spiritual, I got it. Whatever it may be. I've received my rewards because I'm good enough, I'm loved enough, I'm worthy enough. And everything in between. Yeah, it is constantly interpreting our experience, some of it based on conditioning, what we've experienced in the past, what we've been told by our parents, what we've been told by our education, what we've been told by our society, our culture, our gender stereotypes. This constant interpretation creates the veils of perception. We do not see clearly, we see through the veil. It can be subtle or it can be obvious. As we start to examine previously unexamined beliefs, then some of this can be seen through, but often there is a much more subtle layer, which is really what we're talking about here. It's the unconscious momentum of deriving identity from experience. Self-definition based on what I experience, which is only experienced through the filter of the veils of perception. Self-realization is the undoing of those veils of perception. We can facilitate that, first of all, by the willingness to look within, to look at what mechanism is taking place. And secondly, by the willingness, or the art, we could say, of touching our experience lightly. That's different to effort. That's different to struggle. That's different to trying to achieve a higher state of consciousness, trying to achieve enlightenment, trying to achieve a state of stillness or silence or spaciousness. You're not trying to achieve anything. This is not an achievement. To touch softly your experience is something we all have the innate capacity. It's natural. It's natural. As you go about your day, whatever that day looks like, whatever you are doing or not doing, if you are willing, bring to the forefront the art of touching lightly your experience. You know the difference between the tightness, the hardness, the fight, the rejection, or the suppression, or the denial. You know the difference between that and a soft touch. I once taught a 7-day retreat in Greece, in a yurt. Next to a road, not a highway, but a Greek village road. There was still some hustle and bustle. And 2 Greek men started arguing very loudly just on the other side of the wall, right next to our yurt. And there was a lot of huffing and puffing within the yurt because we were resting in silence, meditating. And this one pointer of touching the experience lightly, the rowdiness, the argument, the noise that was invading our space, my space, that I had to defend, that we had to defend. This one pointer, everything just went. And there was stillness. The stillness came to the foreground. The silence came to the foreground. It had nothing to do with noise. We stopped bothering what was arising in existence. We stopped bothering it with our minds, and therefore it didn't bother our minds. Mind fell open. Yeah, this is so simple and, dare I say, easy to practice if you truly have the willingness, if you truly want freedom in the everyday hustle and bustle. It's simple, it's direct, but it's radical because it transforms not to a higher state of consciousness, which I don't even know what that is. Some nice idea. But it transforms what was a prison, the prison of self, the veiled self, the defended self, the interpreting self, the interfering self. This shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. The grievance, yeah? We're aggrieved that the noise is taking place in my meditation space. The grievances, the hurts, what happened in the past, it shouldn't have happened. Now I'm carrying this suffering. Well, yes, you are carrying the suffering because you've interpreted it. It's not a denial. Yeah, it's not a detachment. It's a kind of detachment, but it's not a detachment that removes you from the intimacy of what is, or the fullness of what is. It unpacks the layers so that what hasn't been previously met can be met. It could be the fire of anger. It could be heartbreak. It could be like the surgeon's knife that pierces the heart and it hurts, but it doesn't stick. It only sticks when the tight knot of this shouldn't be happening to me, or it shouldn't have happened to me, is still forming itself. So what we call the ego identity, the ego self, is really just a formation, the process of formation. It forms itself in the present, it reforms itself. Yeah? Process of that formation, the process of interpreting and interfering with experience. It's not a thing that you have to get rid of. It's not a thing that you can locate somewhere and do something about. The ego identity, the ego formation ends in the moment that you touch your experience lightly. And there may be layers of this, but it's now and now and now. Gradually, this thing called the ego comes undone.